Genealogy is a fascinating topic, even if you spell it wrong. There's actually an A in there instead of an O. We'll get to that. My guest this week is Angela Harris, and I'm Janine Nodder, and you're watching Chatting with Janine. So welcome, Angela.
Nice to be here.
I was enjoying our conversation before the camera started rolling.
Yes.
So genealogy is, everybody's getting their DNA tested. Mm-hmm. So there's 23andMe, there's Ancestry. I found out things I didn't know. I found out I have Greek in me. I'm like, who knew? I'm 2% Irish, 2% Spanish. It's very fascinating.
Yes, it is. And DNA is just a very small part of genealogy as a whole, although it seems to be the topic that gets a lot of airtime lately.
Mm-hmm. So there was a woman who recently passed away from Merrimack, a longtime resident, just a pillar of our community, Anita Krager, and she was into genealogy. And I used to go to the Merrimack Historical Society and just sit down. We'd have little chats. And one of those days she told me that she traced her roots all the way back to like 2 BC, it might have been 4 BC. But I said, well, how on earth did you do that?
Yeah.
And she said, well, she started with what she had available, and then you find a list, and then there's a book, and then you find a list. So, and all that's gone now, all that information. I feel bad for her family that it wasn't preserved.
Oh, she didn't write things down or
save
it?
I don't know. She also knew the history of this town like no one else. So we lost a very valuable member. So I wanted to start off with that so that people know that they should write things down and preserve them.
Definitely preserve what you have. There are many ways to do it. Online is the most common way now, it seems. People have shifted from paper records and file cabinets and binders to cloud services like Ancestry. It has the ability, you can build trees and you can add documents, scanned images. People use things like Dropbox or other methods to preserve their information.
Well, they used to use the family Bible.
Family Bible, and boy, those are great. If you can find one nowadays, they seem to have disappeared or disintegrated over time.
One of my uncles did our genealogy. He made books on my mom's side, so I have the two families there.
Oh, that's great.
So, and I found I have a second cousin who happens to be the best friend growing up with Chris Christie.
Oh, no kidding. It's amazing the connections you can find. There used to be a joke, 3 degrees or 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon or somebody.
Bacon, yeah.
Everybody's connected. We're all connected.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into genealogy and what you do and what can you tell us?
I began as a young, we say baby genealogist. I wasn't quite a baby genealogist, but I grew up in Plymouth, Massachusetts, which, as anybody in the Northeast knows, the Pilgrims landed and there's a lot of historical
Plymouth Rock,
Mayflower Society, the Plymouth Plantation, which has changed its name now to Patuxent Plantation.
They did?
I think, yes.
Why would they do that? I don't like change. I don't like change.
They were trying to incorporate more of the indigenous Native American folks that were part of the whole Pilgrim experience, I guess, so they incorporated that into the name. But I grew up surrounded by people who were descended from, they still had the same names, Brewster, everything of, maybe not Standishes, but lots of familiar Pilgrim names. So I was fascinated with that. My family were immigrants from like the late early 1900s, so I was hearing stories of where the grandparents were from, the great-grandparents. And I didn't do much with it until I got till before I got married, and I met my husband and his family, and their family came over with William Penn back in the 1600s. And my father-in-law his aunts had commissioned a pedigree from a professional genealogist. And when he unrolled this beautiful big blueprint paper with this pedigree chart on it, I started picking up mistakes. And I was like, how did this guy, why was he born, 8 years after his father died? That doesn't make any sense.
Oh, that happened on, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened.
So
Yeah.
that was when I started digging and got into it pretty deep, pretty quickly. And as I explored, I found there were many different areas of genealogy, and I decided pretty soon that I wanted to become a professional. And I'm very interested in forensic genealogy, and that's where I tend to do most of my work.
Forensic genealogy.
Forensic genealogy is that overlap where genealogy meets the law. So the forensic part is the law.
Oh, I was thinking the medical examiner.
Well, a medical examiner, when they get involved with something, they're doing an autopsy for legal purposes, death certificate, or a court case. So forensic genealogy, really it's uncovering hidden things, right, for the law. So my focus mainly is in probate genealogy. So if somebody dies without a will, or they have a will, but the people they willed their stuff to have died already, and you don't know who's the next of kin. So you have to kind of research to find that out.
Oh, interesting.
Traditional genealogy goes backwards in time. Forensic genealogy goes backwards in time and then comes forward in time, usually, to find living descendants. So.
And by the time you find them, is there anything left at the estate?
It depends, yeah. Usually a lawyer or an insurance company is involved, hires a genealogist who's paid at an hourly rate, and they cap it. They give you X amount of hours to do the work.
Interesting. Do you have any stories you could share without giving away names?
Not in particular, just interesting circumstances where a gentleman had passed away, there was a will, or there was no will actually, and the family had, they had communicated with some cousins who named a few people and said these are the only people that are related. And then as you go back into the research, you find out there was a couple of other kids that nobody mentioned and didn't want to talk about, who had descendants and were legal heirs. So finding those little secrets sometimes is interesting.
Wow. So getting back to the DNA part,
Sure.
do you dabble in that as well?
I do, a little, not as much as others. It's a very complex topic and it fascinates me, but I've done some work with helping adoptees find their birth parents.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting.
Or folks that weren't sure who a parent was, or they did a DNA test and found out that it wasn't who they thought, their father or grandfather wasn't who they thought.
Shows like that where they
yeah.
Surprise people. Surprise, it's not your kid.
Right. And that's, I was able to help out on a unidentified remains case, but that was very short, so I didn't do much with that.
Yeah. Well, there's bills and legislation about changing birth certificates. So I know we're not supposed to be talking politics.
Yeah.
But
it all crosses over. It's
It
the
does
law,
cross
yeah.
over because there's a push to be able to change the birth certificates. I'm like, but then you're changing the truth of what was true to make it what you want it to be. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a name or your sex. I don't know.
It's a challenge that future genealogists are going to be having to deal with.
Right, and they're going to say, well, wait a minute, this doesn't add up because this person's organs and, well, not the organs, but the shape and everything doesn't match up.
Right.
Or
you find a person who, that a family had a child, it was a male child born in a certain year, but there are no male children. And nobody died, they just kind of disappear. Mm-hmm. So then, it becomes a challenge.
The tests, a lot of people are doing it now. There's Ancestry and what's the other one? 23andMe?
23andMe, there's Family Tree DNA, there's MyHeritage, there's Living DNA. So,
oh, wow, there's a lot of them.
Ancestry by and far is the largest database. So in this country, most people, and in other countries, but in the U.S., it's mostly Ancestry that people use. Some folks use 23andMe. I've done both.
Yeah, I think I want to do another one too because one family member did 23andMe and I did Ancestry, and there were some things that didn't quite match up. And but then it's like, okay, but what maps are they using?
Right.
So-
And exactly,
Right.
their systems are slightly different. Their kits that they test with.
And if you go back in time, look at Europe, the lines have changed where the countries are.
Yeah.
So, there's parts of Poland that used to be part of Germany.
Right.
You've got Germany and France, but there's...
No, you've got
but
Poland didn't
everybody was in
exist for a
Germ-
while.
Exactly.
It was Russian, it was Lithuania, I mean, it was everything.
There's countries on the map now that weren't in existence when I was a kid, because I'm from the last century, which you might be as well.
I think we're
so-
contemporaries.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's use that.
So I'm like, and darn, I wish I still had the globe that we had when I was a kid. It's like, imagine looking at it now, and these countries that are no longer there, or the maps have been redrawn. So I wondered about that.
As far as DNA is concerned?
Yeah, so how accurate is it if it says that you're like a Aegean island?
Yeah, right.
Aegean, I don't know how to say it right. Part of Italy.
Oh, the
Greece.
Aegean.
Yeah.
The Aegean Sea. DNA doesn't know boundaries. Boundaries are lines on a map. So people move and blend and move and blend. Some folks stay still. But I think humans as a whole have moved a lot. So it's interesting. The way they started the testing was they would ask people, what's your ethnicity? So they would take the DNA and they would take your report of, where your family was from.
California.
And then they would start looking.
Foreign land.
Right. They would start matching things up, and then they'd start seeing that, oh, well, all these people say they're from Ireland. We see, and then they would start testing in those areas as well. And they could build the ethnic profile from that. But in a DNA test, the ethnic profile is probably the least accurate of everything. So your matches are accurate. If you match somebody, you share DNA. You're related. The ethnic profile can shift and change as they get more people in the database. They can start comparing the DNA from different groups, and they can fine-tune it, and they can spread it out a little. I was French for a while. There's no French in me.
Yeah.
But
I have
I was
no
French and
either.
German, and I'm not.
No, I have no German either. I married a German, but I have no German in me.
But as people move, those genes kind of travel with them, and you inherit 50% from each parent. So then you inherit 25% from each grandparent. Yeah.
I got 30% from my mom, 35% from my dad.
You got 50% of your DNA from her, but you don't know which 50% of her DNA you got. So it's just before this child is
Actually,
born.
reverse that. I got 35% my mother, 30% my dad. Yeah.
You got 50,
Yeah,
but you don't know which part. And that's the thing, is it jumbles, and then you get a mix. So two siblings are going to have a different profile. So you might have gotten...
Mine all look the same. My son's friends call me a printer.
Oh, because they're all pretty much...
Well, they look the same to me, too. I'm like, wait.
But if they did a DNA test, they may have, one may have inherited more of your Irish or more of your Italian than the other one. And it can shift.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Because my sister told me that because when she did her DNA, she got more English than I got.
Yeah.
Northern England.
Oh, my husband.
I have some Welsh. My husband and I both have Welsh.
Oh.
We didn't know about.
Okay. My husband is a quarter Sicilian, supposedly, but you wouldn't know it from looking at his DNA. He's got, it's mostly Greek, because his mother had that mix, right? So we don't know which part of his mother he got.
Well, I always thought my dad was a dark person, dark skin. But then he'd take his shirt off, and it was blinding.
Yeah, good tanning.
But how did he get a good tanning gene when all of his DNA is from cold northern countries? And my mother, on the other hand, is mostly Italian, and she could match the milk.
Yeah. She pulled up a piece of paper. Yeah. People move, genes move. I don't know. It's interesting how that works, though. But it's kind of like, guys get the eyelashes and the nice curls.
Oh, I know. And that's so unfair.
Know, right?
They do.
It's awful.
Oh, beautiful eyelashes wasted on a boy. I remember one of my sons, I don't like my kids take sex ed in school. I mean, they ended up learning all this stuff anyway because they told us, Mom, we do go to public school. I'm like,
you can't avoid it.
Anyway, I didn't feel comfortable putting them in that class. And I have to say, when my kids were going through the school, they were very accommodating, and no one was unkind to me for making that decision.
That's good.
And an alternate assignment that they gave for one of my sons was we had to pick them apart. Like, well, whose eyebrows do you have? I'm like, we never noticed before. I'm like, yeah, whose eyebrows do you? We don't know.
We don't know.
To this day, we don't know.
Nice.
They're not mine. They're not my husband's.
So I just saw an interesting video the other day. So you know about AI, I'm sure. You've heard everybody hears about AI, right?
Yeah, I've gone to some workshops on that.
Okay, so AI is becoming a big deal in genealogy. And one way, and I didn't think about this until I watched the video, was in photos. So a genealogist had kind of reached out to his different cousins and asked them to share pictures of their parents or grandparents, whatever it was. I forget how many generations back he was trying to get, but he didn't have a picture of his great-grandfather or his whatever. So he asked all the cousins to submit photos of men they descended from, and they put it into AI and merged them and came up with a few variations, but they all looked very much alike because it was like 8 people descended from one man. So you could kind of get an idea of that's where the eyebrows came from, or that's where the teeth came from. It was really kind of fascinating. It was also kind of scary because you start thinking about deep fakes and you could just make up a person, While
you're talking, you just jogged my memory because I just said to this day, I don't know where my son got his eyebrows, but actually, when I was looking through photos this week, Archangelo was my great-grandfather, and you know what? I'm seeing that picture in my head, and he had bushy eyebrows.
Ah, see?
Well, they're not. My son's not bushy, but
but thicker, rich,
nicer,
rich. Yeah.
Yeah.
My grandfather was Archangelo too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's some really cool names in that book that my uncle made, and I'm like, oh, look at this one. How do you say this?
Right.
Sabina.
Yeah. What else was in the family? Salvatore and
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of fun names. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I knew nothing of this. Nothing.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And climbing that family tree, you never know what
Well,
you're
my
gonna
parents
shake
were
out.
older when they had me, so I'm the only one in the family that's not a baby boomer.
Okay.
So I'm Gen X, very proud to be Gen X, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
see?
but
The forgotten generation. Nobody thinks about us.
no, they don't. I lost my train of thought. I don't know what I was saying.
You said something about you're looking in. You were the last child that wasn't a baby boomer.
Yeah.
And you were looking
I
at
don't know what
pictures.
I was looking for. Yeah, I was looking. Oh well, it's gone. It happens. Now I am getting older. I'm not a baby boomer, but lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. I'll think of it later. Yeah.
So, anyway, so I thought the AI thing was cool because you can kind of get an idea of what your grandparents or great-grandparents might have looked like back in the day. I don't know. I have a couple of old photos of my mother had me late too, so she was.
I know what I was going to say.
I don't have.
I remember now. Okay, so my mother, in her generation, when she was growing up, her parents knew the language from the old country, but it was slapped out of them.
Yes.
You speak English, you speak English, you speak English. And so they've lost all that heritage. My mom couldn't speak Italian. She knew some bad words, but she was mispronouncing them.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, wait a minute. No, that's not the way she said
Yeah. I know what you just said.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
What did I say? Was it bad for TV?
I'm not going to say it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
it's not really
I was
bad,
watching
but
Who's the Boss and Tony. I was watching reruns, and he said it.
Yeah.
I heard him saying, "Oh, he just said Manojula."
Yeah. I don't think there's
So I
a law in
apologize
the
if I
end.
offended anybody. I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh, there is a law if you want to make it you're saying it at the end. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes. That's what I'll say. My mom, she was raised by her Italian great-grandmother, actually, who didn't speak much English. So my mother learned from her, but she was from southern Italy, and she married my father, who was from Sicily, whose parents spoke Sicilian. different language. Even though it's Italy, it's a different language. So
yes, I've heard about the Sicilians.
Yeah, they could communicate, but not like fluently, right? They could have a little conversation.
Family from the Avellino area?
Yes.
Yeah, mine too.
Oh,
yeah.
Do you know the town?
Prata?
Prata? No, I don't know. Mine have long town names. So we have Mirabella e Clano and San Mango sul Calore, which is St. Mango.
I don't know how to say those, but it's in the book.
Yeah, okay. Well, I would. Paisan. I was right when we started.
Remember Al Baldessaro?
Cugina. Yes.
Yeah, my Paisan.
Yes.
I miss him.
He was a great guy. So my mom and dad would speak Italian to each other, but they didn't teach the kids.
Right.
Because they wanted to have private conversations.
Well, one of my cousins told me that the grandparents would speak Italian when they didn't want the kids to know what they were talking about.
Yep. And it's terrible because, I mean, I'm trying to learn Italian now because I'm going to Italy. I'm so excited. But I'm trying to learn now, and I'm like wishing they had taught me more, than swear words and eat.
Right.
Mangia. Oh, I got that.
Yes. Our parents, they were so proud to be American. They didn't want anything else. And now, which I'm proud to be American too, but I wish I had the other language. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think they went through a lot of discrimination, I guess you'd say. People didn't they did not like immigrants. They did not like Italians, especially during the early part of the 1900s. So to distance themselves as much as possible was probably important.
Yeah, I didn't even know that I was Italian until I was 20.
Wow.
My aunt told me, she said, she's Italian. I'm like, we're Italian? What? Because all the signs were there. My mother would do this, and yell at us in the foreign tongue.
Yeah.
But
Did she shake a wooden spoon?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Let's shake that wooden spoon.
Oh yeah. But you know what? We had this thing in the front yard. It's a decorative thing, and when she wasn't looking, I took them. Things we used to get spankings with, and I hid them. And one day my dad took it apart, and he found them. Yeah, and then they found me.
Yeah. So interestingly, you say that you didn't know you were Italian. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember the exact statistic, but it's something like 50% of Americans don't know all four grandparents' names.
Oh wow.
So
I probably do, but okay, you're Italian, so what do you call the little, I guess it's an hors d'oeuvre with the tomato and the mozzarella?
A caprese?
Caprese
salad?
My cousins were raised knowing they were Italian, so when I go visit them, and I was like getting a little dish, and I'm putting some tomato and some mozzarella on the plate, and they looked at me horrified. Oh, no. Let me show you how to do that.
Oh, you're going to stack them up and put a basil leaf on top.
Yes.
A little bit of olive oil. Yeah, it's great.
My cousin had to help me. She made it for me all nice. I'm like, I wasn't raised Italian. I know nothing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 3/4 Italian, so I got most of it. But yeah, caprese was not part of our menu at home.
What about spaghetti sauce? Did you call it sauce or gravy?
It was sauce.
Yes, I have friends that will argue with me that it's gravy.
Yes,
I'm like, no, it's not gravy.
It's not. That's
you
American.
ruin it if you call it gravy. It's good gravy. It's spaghetti sauce.
Sauce. Yes.
So I still haven't perfected my mom's recipe, but I try. I keep trying.
I can get the sauce pretty close. My problem is our meatballs. I can't get meatballs. I can't. There's some taste that I'm not getting. They're good. I mean, they come out okay, but they're not my mother's, and I keep yearning for that one meatball.
So we moved from California to New Hampshire in 1998.
Oh.
You want to know how we sold the house in California?
Oh, boy.
I had the spaghetti sauce cooking on the stove. And everybody who came in for that open house, they're like, wow, that sold the house.
It's better than chocolate chip cookies.
They all kept asking, so what time do we come back for spaghetti? So you dip a cracker into the sauce and hand it to them. It's a nice little treat.
Nice. See?
That's my sell your house tip of the day.
That is a very good tip, and I'm going to try that, I think.
Are you moving?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Someday.
There's nowhere to go.
We were just having this discussion.
You could sell, but there's nowhere to go.
Right. And that's exactly it. You can't. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But my brother and I used to argue over the Italian bread. So one of the things we used to do, you just triggered my memory when you said dipping the cracker in there. My mother would do the Sunday sauce. It was on the stove all day, and she'd have a nice loaf of Italian bread going on the side. And we always fight over the heel of the bread because you cut it and you pull out the insides and fill it with some sauce, put some cheese on top. And
oh, yummy.
But there's only 2 heels, so we'd have to fight.
Oh. I remember seeing a talk show years and years ago about this big family. They had like lots of kids, like 13, 14 kids, and maybe it was more than that. And they had a contest on whoever got the biggest meatball, they won a prize, and it was just random, whoever.
That's kind of fun. I'd make them wash the dishes.
I always got stuck with the dishes. But amazingly, I still washed the dishes. Even when my kids were growing up, I still did the dishes. It was just ingrained in me that
You do the dishes. Yeah.
And we didn't have an automatic dishwasher. My dad says, well, why should I buy an automatic dishwasher? I've got 3 dishwashers. You, and you. but it was always me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Shared
the last
our
one.
grievances on this show today.
This
We
is
had
great.
recipe tips, how to sell a house, genealogy, and learn that Ancestry's got the biggest database.
Yes. 23andMe is second. A lot of Europeans, if somebody is trying to find their European ancestry or cousins or whatnot, especially if they're more recent immigrants, MyHeritage, I believe it is the database that they would find more European folks testing into.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So in the last 30 seconds of the show, do you have anything you want to say?
No, this was fun.
This was fun.
I could go on forever. I'll stop, though.
See, most of the people that I know from politics, but these shows I've been doing this year are not political, and they're fun.
They are fun. I could go on forever. Oh, good,
I
we're done,
hope you keep watching, and I'll be back next week, and thank you, Angela, for being on the show.